Good evening. Welcome to the West Jordan Planning Commission meeting for May 19th, 2015. We have 6 members of our commission present tonight. Commissioner Jacob is excused. Jumping into our agenda for the evening, we do have one item on our consent calendar, which is the minutes from the May 5th, 2015 meeting. Commissioner Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the minutes from our previous meeting of May 5th, 2015 with the change that Commissioner Green mentioned in the pre-meeting, that because he wasn't here for a meeting that he counted as abstaining from the vote to approve those minutes, since he wasn't at the meeting for the minutes that we were approving.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Pack, second by Commissioner Stokowski. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Bring us to our first public hearing for the evening, which is the Copper Valley Estates, approximately 8600 South, 5600 West, deferral of public improvements. Perry Homes Incorporated is the applicant. Is the applicant present?
He's just walking in the door.
Okay. I think we're waiting on you. That's all right.
Jeff Taylor with Perry Homes. I'll answer any questions you have.
What would you like to tell us about this?
Well, since I came in late and didn't hear your report, we are wanting to move ahead with the Copper Valley, the first phase of our Copper Valley subdivision, located at 56th West and 8600 South, and we want to just north of there. And in order to do that, because of the road that's not in on 8600 South, we need to have a deferral agreement. And so I believe you've been given the packet that shows everything that's there, and that's what we're asking for is for Planning Commission to approve this or recommend approval to the City Council for this deferral agreement.
Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none. Mr. Gardner.
And so Copper Valley Estates was approved last July, I believe, June or July. The subdivision, as you can see on the screen, the road, and as part of the subdivision, they're required to put in boundary roads as part of the development. 8600 South is a future road on the future roads map. However, it is not been improved, and with this development, generally if this road was to be put in, it would really go nowhere anyway, because it would be interrupted with Mountain View Corridor. The other issue is the applicant at this time does not own the property where the road would go on, and as you can read through the criteria for the deferral, it meets all of the criteria. You can see this is how the subdivision will be laid out. There'll be a commercial piece on the corner of 5600 West and 8600 South with the road. It would kind of go straight, but it would end at 5600 West. It would not continue east past that point. And if you can see the black dots on the bottom of the screen, that's how the future road will go. The one issue is the bridge over Mountain View Corridor will more than likely or probably be the responsibility of UDOT. Now, at this point, they don't have it on their long-range plan for that quite costly piece of infrastructure, and so when this road will come into fruition to the west, being a connecting road to the west will depend upon 2 things: the development of the property to the west, which will be required to put in the road at that time or defer it, and the property just immediately to the south of Copper Valley Estates. Now, when that comes in, then the road could be completed between the 2 different developments, Perry Homes and the developer of that property. Perry Homes will be required to make a deposit with the city for the not only the cost of the property, which they do not own, but also the cost of the infrastructure and the road itself. And so the city is protected, and really this is a deferral that the city council can grant by ordinance, but the planning commission makes a recommendation to the city council. And there's 3 different deferrals that need to be considered tonight. The first deferral is the timing of the dedication. Actually, when the property is actually dedicated to the city, that will be deferred. The timing of design. There actually is not a design at this time because of the issues to the west and the bridge over Mountain View Corridor. And there's really not a reason to design because Copper Valley Estates does not exit onto this road at this time. The commercial piece, when that developed, will. And the third deferral is the timing of construction, of course. So it's really the deferral of public improvements. It meets all of the criteria for deferrals you can read in the staff report, and staff recommends that you make a positive recommendation to the council on all 3 of these motions. So.
Any questions for staff?
I had one question. The developer is going to be required to put money in an account, escrow account.
Yes.
How much and how long is that money being held?
It's by
We get to choose, or you?
No, it's by ordinance. It's by ordinance and by standard practice that the city has done. Basically the money is deposited by phase, and then it's held as long as it's needed until this is a deferral of improvements. What this says is this deferral is that yes, I will build this infrastructure, but I'm deferring the time, and so it's held until it actually gets constructed. Now, if it gets held for 50 years, you might be in a problem because, and I don't know, Bob, there might be a state law on how long you can hold money in an account, but hopefully it's not too long because then the cost of the infrastructure could very rapidly outpace what is deposited in 2015 dollars. And so hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, 0 to 10 years, it will be constructed. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
The exact numbers just are still being worked out between us and the engineering department. But when this goes to the city
So it's
council,
a percentage of what the road cost would be?
it's actual cost.
it's the actual cost, and we would be deferring half of that. We would be putting up half of that cost.
Because
Money would remain there until they build a bridge across.
until the road's constructed. The road could be constructed before the bridge. If the property to the south develops, then that would kick in the construction of the complete road. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Green?
What's the anticipated time for the deferred improvement agreement to be signed?
It needs to go to the city council.
But I mean, after the city council, what's the time frame?
With 15 days. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? I'll now open this meeting to the public. If there's anybody who would like to comment on this particular item, the time is now yours. For our public comment period, you're invited to the microphone, and if you'll please give your name and contact information for the public record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments.
Barrett Peterson, Peterson Development, 225 South, 200 East. Jeff probably wasn't expecting me to be here, but we own the property directly to the south. We don't have any immediate plans to develop it, but we are very much in favor of this deferral agreement as these infrastructure improvements are very costly. And of course, when we're ready to develop that piece, we would be paying for half of it. And I haven't talked with Jeff in depth lately, but that's the rough framework as I understand it. I just wanted to tie this to another agenda item that you'll be looking at, I think item number 7, which is bringing back the cap and grade ordinance. That piece to the south is a high-density piece that we hope to develop as some sort of multifamily for sale, for rent. And our hands are kind of tied right now because of what you as the Planning Commission and City Council have done with that cap and grade. So we're very much in favor of some of the exemptions that are being discussed with the cap and grade to allow for multifamily for sale housing, and that may expedite the development of a piece like that. And I'll talk again at the last item, but just wanted to get on the record that we're in favor of what is being proposed here, and I think it's a very reasonable solution to a difficult situation for the developer.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on this item? Then close public hearing and bring it back to the commission for further discussion. Commissioner Gray.
We have the three different deferrals that we're talking about, and I'm going to be referring to the one on the timing of construction deferral. Maybe we can ask a couple of questions, but there's two parts in the finding A and finding B, that are part of the staff report that concern me, that unless we modify it, I'm going to take a negative position on the timing of the construction deferral. And that is in finding A, it says the city engineer has prepared and the city council has reviewed, and unfortunately we can't find that as a fact. And so, and it talks about the city engineer providing an analysis of the feasibility. I think the implied task there is that we ought to be able to see that feasibility study and know that the city engineer has determined that it's unfeasible. And so I think that finding is a little tenuous for us to make the finding a fact tonight. And on finding B, and maybe Mr. Thorpe, you can help me on this one. It talks about the eligible public improvements are defined as, and in number 4, it talks about approved by the city in advance. And now we're doing this. Is this in advance, or is this something that should have that had been done in advance of the preliminary plat? That's one question I had on that one. Maybe, can somebody answer that one? Finding B, A4 on page 5, that it talks about eligible public improvements are defined as they are approved by the city in advance of the development in accordance with the city's ordinances. Is that what we're doing tonight?
It's my understanding that's what you're doing.
Okay, then I'm okay with that one. So I guess my concern then is with finding A, and then that also ties into finding C, because if you really can't meet finding C's intent without finding A. So unless we have something to fix finding A, I'm not comfortable with voting for that. Thank you.
Any other comments? I entertain a motion. Or 3. Commissioner Hunter.
Based on the findings set forth in this staff report and the information, evidence, and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve a timing of dedication deferral for 8600 South Street and all required associated utility improvements adjacent to Copper Valley Estates development.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Heiner, second by Commissioner Laws. Any discussion to the motion? Commissioner Skoski.
I'd like to make a motion based on the findings set forth in the staff report.
Hang on. We have a motion in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hang on. Any discussion of the motion on the timing of dedication?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Commissioner Skoski.
All right. Based on the findings set forth in the staff report and the information, evidence, and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve the timing of design deferral for 8600 South Street and all required associated utility improvements adjacent to the Copper Valley Estates development.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Skoski, second by Commissioner Laws. Any discussion to the second motion? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Who wants the third? Commissioner Heiner.
Based on the findings set forth in the staff report and the information, evidence, and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve a timing of construction deferral for 8600 South Street and all required associated utility improvements adjacent to the Copper Valley Estates development.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Heiner, second by Commissioner Laws. Any discussion to the motion? Commissioner Spassky.
Is there a way that we can change the motion in such a way that would address Commissioner Green's concerns as well? Because I share those same concerns. I think I would like to see some actual numbers before we push this one up. Can we maybe change the motion or defer the motion to a following meeting?
We could certainly table it for a later meeting. Would anybody be opposed to adding some wording to that motion saying that this is pending a review of the city engineer's report by City Council, which is a given to happen anyways?
I would accept that friendly motion.
I would accept that.
Okay. All right, so we have a slightly amended motion then to, where am I at here? To forward a positive recommendation on the timing of construction, pending a review of the city engineers by City Council. Any discussion to that? Commissioner Back?
No, thank you.
Oh,
That was
okay,
mine.
okay.
That was mine. I concur.
Excellent.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, next one. Text amendment amending the West Jordan Municipal Code, section 13-5J, amending the west side planning area boundary, Gladstone Place, Peterson Development. Barrett Peterson is the applicant. And the time is now yours.
Thanks. Good evening again. Barrett Peterson, Peterson Development, 225 South, 200 East. I'll try to keep this brief. Got a laser pointer that I probably should have asked for. There's a small piece, thank you, Larry, small piece of ground that we're in the process of acquiring from UDOT. Don't want to poke anyone in the eye here. Which button is that? The green one? Okay. Right here, it's about 8.3 acres. And there's been numerous applications that have come before Planning Commission and City Council. And ultimately, City Council decided via development agreement to allow us to put this 8.3 acres within the overall Highlands Master Plan. It just makes sense on a lot of levels to have this piece, which abuts another high-density piece right here, be one contiguous development. It'll be real nice. There'll be the trail, the Mountain View Corridor Trail will go between a lot of the townhomes there that we'll be doing with Garbett Homes. Be a real nice community right up against the Mountain View Corridor. It's a logical place for high density. So tonight before you have basically putting this into the west side planning area and sort of ratifying, as I understand it, what the City Council's done. It's just one of the steps we have to take to keep this development moving and to move forward with it. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I may defer some to Bob, who is the legal expert on this and has helped us work through some of the legal side of it stuff.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I got one.
Commissioner Green?
So are you the current property owner on this piece of land?
You know, we have it under contract with UDOT, and it's contingent on some of these zoning issues. We'll probably close on that this summer. And then we own the property contiguous here outlined in red. And as I kind of glossed over a few things very quickly, but our partner on the project is Garbett Homes. They build a very nice townhome product that we'll be building with them there. That will be a nice, we think it's a great use for it right there along the freeway.
I have one question. I think this is the second time we've considered expanding the WSPA since we stopped the WSPA. Is that something you anticipate doing any further?
It's a very fair question. We've come to you with this piece, which seemed to make sense, and this one that will be coming back again as well. That's also been approved. Those are kind of the natural geographic boundaries there that you can see. There is one little 5-acre piece here that, just to be frank, that we could come back with. It would make sense. If it doesn't work out, it would develop fine on its own because it's single family. It doesn't have as many moving parts as this high density one, but that would be the only one really. And you look everywhere else, it wouldn't make any sense. We don't own any of this land, and it just was more kind of a convenience to keep it all within this west side planning area. You also have the special assessment area, which will also include all these properties where each of these residents will receive in their monthly billing a little extra bill for the open space and maintenance of this area, which should be a little bit higher standard than other parts of the city. So on that level, it made sense, because how do you do a development here if they're using a lot of the amenities in open space and yet they're not getting billed for it? It's just, we seem to think it made sense. It's hard to draw a line sort of anywhere, but these two areas seem to make sense on that level. So it's not a perfect system, but that's the way we've sort of worked through it with staff.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. We'll save you some time after the public hearing if there's anything you'd like to address.
Say that again, sir.
We'll save you some time after the public hearing if there's something you'd like to
I
address.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Gardner.
Mr. Peterson covered very well what their intent is. I might add that this is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, and it is amending the text of the WSPA where it says that it will, the description will go from 410 acres to 418 acres. This is a little odd because it's a land use ordinance that generally people get confused that it affects the entire city. Well, it doesn't in this case. It just affects the WSPA area. And so staff supports this. It meets all of the criteria for approval and recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council. So.
Any questions for staff? Very well. I'll now open this item to the public if there's anybody who would like to comment on this. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the Commission. Commissioner Green.
Based on the findings in the staff report and the discussions received in this hearing, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed text amendment to Section 13.5J2A WSPA defined within the 2009 City Code as addressed in the staff report, with one condition, that the true property owner be attached to the application as part of the prior to the City Council meeting and approving this or discussing this item. The applicant, and then I'll after I make that, then I can talk about that on the discussion. But that's the motion I have is with the condition that the true property owner also be reflected on the application. So it's the staff report. The motion is the recommend with a condition that the true property owner be listed on the application prior to consideration by the City Council.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Sikoski. Discussion to the motion.
So the only reason I'm adding that condition is that the application shows that Peterson Development is the owner, and since it's under contract, UDOT probably ought to be listed as the property owner as well, so they can speak for UDOT. And there will eventually, as we know, there will be a subdivision. They'll have to subdivide that property and everything, but at some point, I think we ought to have, for the records of the city, that the true property owner right now is UDOT.
Any further discussion to that? Quite a bunch tonight. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Brings us to item number 4 on our agenda, which is the West Jordan Business Plaza, 4792 West, New Bingham Highway, considering a preliminary site plan and a PO zone. The West Jordan Business Plaza LLC is the applicant. Is the applicant present? There they are. The time is now yours.
Leanne Galloway. I'm with the West Jordan Business Plaza. Architect. Oh, 4792 West New Bingham Highway.
Greg Stephenson, architect, Sandy, Utah.
We're building a 3-tenant space, one for a preschool called Puddle Jumpers, a dental office, Shankomi Dental, and the third will be a professional office, hopefully a orthodontist or some other professional office.
There's not that much on this to present. We've been working with staff last few months to get this to where we feel very comfortable with what we're presenting. They are already have 2 of the 3 spaces leased out, so we're encouraged and would like to get in the ground. Being that preschool would like to be in the same time the normal school sessions. So,
Any questions for the applicants?
Sure, I have one. I'll be a pain in the neck tonight.
Go for it.
So just looking at this, it puts the far, looking at this, the far right-hand corner of the building right up next to the neighbor's property line. Was there any consideration of putting the building out so that, like, if you rotated at 45 degrees so that the building was more along 4800 South, or 4800 West?
there's issue with getting the required parking for the size of the building, and also fire. We would have needed a turnaround.
Okay.
And would not have happened.
What is the buffer between the back of the property or the back of the building and the
20 feet.
20 feet?
And it's landscaped as well.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. We'll save you some time after the public hearing. Ms. Larson.
Thank you. So the proposed building meets all of city code standards for parking, landscaping, and buffer. This is a unique site where the property faces, 3 sides of the property faces 2 streets. So the applicant did initially have some difficulties finding a way to fit the parking lot and the building on the site. The proposed configuration of the site does meet our standards, and I think that it's the best one that we were able to come up with the building facing New Bingham Highway and the parking lot located towards the back of the building. The landscaping buffers are being met for both the parking lot along 4800 West and the separation between the office development and the residential development on the towards the east of the lot. Because this property is meeting city code standards, staff is recommending planning commission approval for the preliminary site plan.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Pack.
Well, thank you. I guess any concern about circulation in and out, given the type of businesses being there, with the daycare. Just as I look at the schematic drawings, I'm just wondering, because that is a really busy intersection, and especially with that winding curve going around, it's a little bit of a blind curve. Any other traffic information besides, what's in the staff packet?
Our traffic engineer reviewed the access from 4800 West and considered it to be sufficient to the 3 proposed uses for the new building. In order for the applicant to meet the parking standards, there is a buffer, a 20-foot buffer that's required along 4800 West. In order for them to meet the number of required parking stalls, they do have a one-way enter and exit, and it's a single-flow circulation parking lot. So with this configuration, we don't expect that there's going to be any issues.
Great, thank you. I guess the big question is, where is Davy Jones Fireworks going to relocate?
Fire marshal saying anywhere else but West Jordan.
Any other questions for staff? Excellent. Well, I'll open this item to the public. If there's anybody who would like to comment on this specific item, the time is now yours. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Mack.
Oh, thank you. I live adjacent to the property, and I've been there 17 years, and I'm just surprised that it hasn't been developed up to this point. I think it's a good addition to it, not just because I live close by, but I think it brings good business to our city. And looking at the design, they have incorporated the ideas that the design review committee forwarded to them. And in my estimation, it looks like a really nice project in addition to the community.
Sounds like you want to make a motion.
I was just making a comment. If there's no other...
Any other discussion? Ooh, we got lots of red lights. Commissioner Scosky.
Based on the positive findings set forth in the staff report and information received during this meeting, I move the Planning Commission approve the West Jordan Business Plaza located at 4792 West New Beacon Highway in a PO zoning district with the following conditions. With the conditions set forth in the staff report.
Second.
The motion by Commissioner Scosky, second by Commissioner Pack. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item 5 on our agenda is the Sun Ridge Assisted Living, 7037 South, 4800 West, considering a preliminary site plan and conditional use permit in an R312 SHO zone. Sunset Village LLC and Cerrito Development LLC are the applicants. Is the applicant present? The time is now yours.
My name is Andy McKay, 11602 South Redwood Road in South Jordan, and grateful to be here. The staff has worked with us for a number of months, and we're excited to be to this point. I think we've addressed all of the issues that we've worked through and incorporated the recommendations from the Design Review Committee. For those who may be new to this project, we are really excited to be able to have it on one level. In an assisted living center, it's a big deal to be able to have a site without elevators, and so we've kind of had to work through that issue for a while to be able to not go vertical and do the two-story that you see so commonly. And so we feel like the staff recommendations are, we're in agreement with all of those. One of those mentions an easement to the east for access for emergency vehicles, and we've been successful in securing that easement from the Homeowners Association, pending city approval on that. And looking forward to getting under construction and getting underway. So, thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Scosky.
How many units will be in this building?
63 or 64. Right now our plan shows 63, and it's possible that with some of the design, as we're going into the full-scale drawings with the architect, it looks like it might be 64, and that's something that we've reviewed with staff.
Okay. All right, that's all.
Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gray?
I noticed it's going to have, at least the way I read this report, there are going to be 25 parking spots. Is that adequate enough for the residents and the employees that will work there? How many, I guess my first question would be how many employees will work there on any given shift?
Yeah.
And then the anticipated cars that'll show up for visitors and the such.
If I could introduce Jeremy Searle, he's our parking and traffic engineer, and the city staff had the same concern and asked that we look into that in depth so that we could make a recommendation that we could not end up with a problem down the road. And so Jeremy's prepared some information on that. I'll turn the time to him if that's okay.
Please, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Jeremy Searle with Hales Engineering at 1220 North, 500 West in Lehigh. We were asked to prepare a parking study for this site and looked at several things. We looked at national parking rates for similar type land uses. Staff also made the recommendation that we look at similar type land uses here in the valley to look at their parking needs and how they would compare here. And then, of course, compared those to the parking rates required by the city. When we look at the national standards, ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, has surveyed parking requirements at assisted living facilities across the country and found that the average parking demand is 0.41 stalls per unit, which is lower than that required by the city. We've also looked at two other similar type uses here in the valley. We looked at Carrington Court Assisted Living and Memory Care, located in South Jordan, and Care Source, located in Holiday, Utah. These are similar type facilities, provide the same services, and looked at their parking needs. We counted these on a typical weekday during the peak parking time, and then also on a holiday weekend on Easter. What we found is that the parking provided at both these places was quite more than was necessary. The highest amount of parked vehicles percentage-wise was only 65% of the parking was utilized, and most of it was quite a bit lower than that. We found that the overall demand at these two sites was 0.28 stalls per room, plus 1 stall per staff member, and then at the Care Source it was 0.24 stalls per bed plus 1 stall per staff member. And I realize I'm going into a lot of detail here, but I just want to let you know that we've gone through a lot of work to compare these different sites, look at the national standard, and then apply that data to what we have here. What we found is that using these numbers, we recommend that a minimum of 25 stalls be provided, which you see on site. We've also worked with staff to provide an additional 11 stalls, and you can see those marked along the top, along the site. Those will be striped in. Yes, thank you. And those will be provided for the site as well. Those can count towards the parking requirements. In addition, there is on-street parking that's allowed on 48th West to the southwest area, shown there in green. We did not count any of those stalls toward the total. However, on an event, if there's a holiday or if there's something going on here, that on-street parking could be utilized as well for the site. So in conclusion, the parking study did find that the 25 stalls would be adequate. We also have the additional 11 across the top that are being provided, and the study concluded that parking should be adequate for this site. I'm happy to answer any additional questions you have on that.
Commissioner Green, does that answer your question?
Unless I start to do some more math, it probably does, at least for now.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the parking? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant in general? Very good. We'll save you some time after the public hearing. Ms. Larson.
Thank you. So initially, well, in expectation of the assisted living facility being located on this site, the applicant came in late last year to rezone the property to R312 SHO, or Senior Housing Overlay. City Council approved the rezone, and the proposed site plan, the preliminary proposed site plan, does meet our city code standards And there are 3 reviews that staff has done for this project. The conditional use for the assisted living facility to be located on this site, the preliminary development plan, and the preliminary site plan. Staff recommends Planning Commission approve all 3 applications for this property.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Green?
So what's the city requirement for parking spots in this, under the code? I'm going to be a pain tonight, I'm sure.
Well, in the ordinance, it allows the zoning administrator to make the determination if it's a similar type use that the applicant can produce a study that says the parking would be sufficient. And so we haven't really pigeonholed this as a certain use because there isn't one. It was really a determination by Mr. Mikalosh at this time that it met the parking. So.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Very well. I'll open this item up to the public if there's anybody who would like to comment on this specific site plan. Seeing none, close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
I'm going to comment on the parking.
Please.
I'm still a little, as I look and I thank you for pointing it out, it looks like that during 8 to 5, there's 13 staff members. When I do the math, there are 13 staff members and 0.24 parking spots per acre. If we go to 64 units in this place, that requires 28 parking spots based on the applicant's proposal. And that's and we're at 25. I don't know if we want to fight over 3 parking spots, but
Plus 11 at the top.
Unless we count the 11 on the top on the street.
Which we do, because they're going to be painted in.
Okay.
Which puts us at 36. Then.
Which puts us actually at 36 then?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm good with that. Although I'm concerned about having cars parked on 4800 West. When we talk about on-street parking on 4800 West over there, I'm a little concerned with that. But other than that, okay, that makes more sense. All right.
Commissioner Scott?
I think I don't necessarily have a problem with cars parked on 4800 West initially because I would assume that would be where the staff would park and leave the closer parking open to the residents.
On 4800 or on 7?
On 4800, yeah.
4800.
The 11 stalls.
And the city's traffic. The city's traffic engineer did review the on-street parking along 4800 West, and because 4800 West is wide enough in that area, he felt that it was safe in order to have that parallel parking stall.
The 11, just to clarify, the 11 marked stalls are actually on 78.
Yeah.
And so the 4800 West, there is parking allowed there, but it is not counted toward the total. It's just the 11 on 78.
Any other discussion? I'll go ahead and make a motion then. I move that the Planning Commission approve Sunridge Assisted Living located at 7037 South, 4800 West, in an R312 SHO zone with conditions 1 through 5 as listed in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Law, second by Commissioner Quinney. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Brings us to item number 6 on our agenda tonight, which is the Salt Lake County Public Health Center, 7971 South, 1820 West.
Mr. Chairman.
There was actually 3 motions.
That's right, there was. My apologies. Let me get back to my page. Thank you.
They're still making motions, so you can.
Hang on. I got to back up. I missed a piece. Let me make that second motion there that we approve the assisted living facility conditional use permit for the property located at 7037 South, 4800 West, in an R312 SHO zoning district with conditions 1 through 4 as listed in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Laws, second by Commissioner Quinney. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1 with Commissioner Green casting a negative vote. And the last one is, I move that the Planning Commission approve Sunridge Assisted Living Preliminary Development Plan for the property located at 7 at the property previously mentioned.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Laws, second by Commissioner Quinney. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1 with Commissioner Green casting the negative vote. Now back to item 6, which is the Salt Lake County Public Health Center. Preliminary site plan in a PF zone. MHTN Architects is the applicant.
Yes.
Now the time is yours.
I'm Greg Beecher with MHTN Architects. We're at 420 East South Temple. And we're looking forward to the opportunity of working with West Jordan again. Our proposal is to build a two-story building, 20,000 square feet for Salt Lake County Public Health Center. We've worked really hard with Salt Lake County to fit their program into a small building and meet their budget and not have it look like a box. And that was one of their big fears, was that they were going to end up with a box because they had a very tight budget. This project is located just north of these offices here in the parking lot on about a 2-acre site. It houses 4 departments. It's got WIC, immunization, a very small piece for vital statistics, and then the second floor is basically taken by the administration offices for public health. It's a steel frame structure. We've got brick, phenolic panel, and metal panel for our finishes. The phenolic panel is similar to what we did on the West Jordan Library. The wood panel that's there, it's only, we've just got a single color rather than the multicolor that was there. We've got a south-facing entry, so that it kind of faces the rest of the campus here. We think it will add to the campus. There's an agreement to share some of the parking with West Jordan City. We have, I believe our required parking is 82 stalls, and we have a total of 108, I believe, and 24 of those are agreed to share with West Jordan City.
Any questions for the applicant? Excellent. We'll save you some time if there's any public comment.
Great.
Thank you. Ms. Larson again.
Thank you. I think Greg did a great job reviewing the project. The proposed preliminary site plan meets all of city's criteria for the preliminary site plan, with the exception of the height of the building. The proposed building exceeds the maximum height of the PF district. The maximum is 30 feet. The proposed height of the building is 38 feet. Staff did include a condition of approval for the preliminary site plan that the applicant submit for a conditional use permit. In order for final site plan review to be approved, that conditional use permit would also need to be approved by the Planning Commission.
Did I read in here that the conditional use permit was going to be administratively handled?
Yeah.
Or am I thinking of a different item tonight?
That's right, but when we reviewed it further, while I was writing the staff report, we understood that we could review it administratively. But when we re-reviewed the staff report, we decided to bring it back to Planning Commission for that review to be by the Planning Commission. So it would be by the Planning Commission, not administratively.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Pack?
Oh, thank you. So that motion, the conditional use permit, is basically condition number 5 of the motion to.
But we're not granting the conditional use permit. We're just saying they're going to have to come back.
The conditional use permit must be approved prior to the final site plan. Okay.
Yeah, they need to apply and come back for a conditional use permit for this use. So.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, our public is dwindling. We'll open up this meeting to the public if there is anybody who would like to comment on this particular item. Seeing none, close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Green.
I'm going to first make a grammatical motion. I move that we amend criteria number 6 to have it word the architectural character of the proposed building is in harmony with and compatible with those structures in the neighboring environment, and strike the word restaurant.
I'm not sure it's relevant. It's really just a discussion point.
Well, but if we're making a finding, I think we need to make the finding accurate. So I'm going to make that motion to amend the finding that it says character of the proposed building.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Sikoski to amend the staff report.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the staff report oftentimes finds its way into the minutes, so that's probably a good idea.
All right, then. I've never seen us do that. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Want to make that other motion?
I was trying to find it. So I move that based on the findings set forth in the staff report and the information and the that we've information received during this meeting, I move that the Planning Commission approve the Salt Lake County Health Center located at 7971 South, 1825 West in a PF zoning district with the conditions 1 through 5 that's listed in the staff report.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Quinn. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Brings us to the last item on our agenda, which is the text amendment, amending the 2009 City Code, Section 13-8-23, making miscellaneous amendments to language relating to cap and grade requirements for certain types of multifamily residential developments. Mr. McCandless.
Thank you. Planning Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, the city's general plan was adopted 3 years ago. It supports a housing ratio of 83% single-family residential to 17% multi-family residential. And over the past several years, multifamily development has kind of outpaced single-family residential development, as I mentioned in the pre-meeting. I guess back at the end of last year, the Planning Commission or the City Council opted to put into place what we call our cap and grade ordinance, which is Section 13-8-23 of the City Code. They put that into effect, and then they also reduced that ratio to 77% single family residential to 23% single family or 23% multifamily residential. The Section B of the code well, maybe what I can just give you a little bit of background on it. Back in October 22nd, 2014, the City Council adopted the ordinance, and the information that's up on the screen is the text that was adopted at that time. So that was October 22nd. This was what came before the Planning Commission, what the Planning Commission recommended to the Council. So as you can see, there was the exemption for multi-housing, there was an exemption for senior housing, owner-occupied townhomes, owner-occupied twin homes, and then multifamily housing for disabled person, and also low to moderate income. The following month, that went back to the City Council, took that ordinance and amended it. They adopted actually another ordinance amending this one, which is Ordinance 14-34. It was adopted on November 5th, 2014. And they basically took out everything but the exemption for multifamily housing, in a transit station overlay district. Since that time, we've taken another look at the code in relation to the fair housing standards, and we also have been on a couple of field trips to take a look at some multifamily housing, some examples of multifamily housing, and so based on that, what we're looking at and recommending is that some of those things be put back into the code to meet those criteria. So it's kind of a two-part thing. The first is to address the fair housing standards for the senior housing, the code requirements for the low-income housing. And then the second part of that is whether you feel comfortable with adding back into that text an exemption for owner-occupied townhomes and twin homes, and then also patio homes. So what we've done is put together some text. You'll notice it's a little bit different. Multifamily housing in the transit station overlay district would still be in effect. The reason it's crossed out up on top is just because I had to reformat it. Senior housing for age 55 and older, multifamily housing for disabled persons, low and moderate income housing owned by a nonprofit or local housing authority. And then the final one would be residential developments in compliance with the general plan with the density lower than, and we put in 7.5 dwelling units per acre. And the reason we did that was it was kind of a midpoint in the high density range in the general plan. And you can change that. I have a couple of examples here that I'll show you on the different densities. So it's owner-occupied townhomes, cluster or patio homes or twin homes, all with a minimum home size of 1,500 square feet. And we say preferably on the main floor with an attached two-car garage, where all housing units shall be occupied by owners and recorded as part of the city-approved CCNRs. We also include a definition of the cluster or patio home as part of that. Just as an example, we did one of the sites that we did tour was the Somerset Villas, and this is located south of the Smiths on Redwood Road at about 7200 south. That comes in at roughly 9.9 dwelling units per acre. And this, I just put this in here just to kind of give you an idea of a comparative zoning districts, what the density would be based on the lots per gross acre. As you can see, 7.5 dwelling units per acre is roughly equivalent to an R16 zone. The 10 acres is equivalent to an R14, maybe the R2 density. I'm going to go into this Google Earth diagram just showing this is the Somerset Villas that we toured, if you remember that. We also went to, let's see, just give me a second here to find some. I'm searching for the Hogle Zoo as a reference point.
I would guess that their dwelling unit per acre is pretty low.
How many animals per acre?
Oh, I've driven by that.
So we're close to this was a development for townhomes, and just as a comparison, this one comes in. This is the townhome project right here. We calculated that at around a little over 5.5 dwelling units per acre. And I'll do a kind of street view just to give you an idea of what those units are.
So what would we do without Google?
Yeah.
So they're a little less dense than the Somerset Villas, but that just kind of give you an idea of what those really mean, what those numbers really mean. So again, we're recommending the 7.5. You're welcome to change that or any of the language that's in the text you see necessary.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Green.
So when we talk, I'm going to, most of this stuff with the senior housing and the multifamily housing, obviously we're going to focus on the residential one in paragraph E. They're probably the one that's going to cause the most heartburn with everybody. My question would be, as we look at that, did the staff ever look at a maximum height for these particular buildings? As I was sitting here, the reason why I asked that question is if you drive down the river bottom at 106 South, that new development that's going on just to the south of 106th, anybody familiar with that?
On the east side of the river?
On the east side of the river. On the south.
There,
yeah. They built their townhomes on top of the garage. So you have a garage and then you have 2 more floors. And my concern is that unless we word that I'm going to say some creative developer is going to come in and say, I want to put my units 3 stories high with the attached garage underneath. Do you think that would be a possibility?
Typically, your building heights are based on the different zoning. They're capped and limited by the underlying zoning, so I don't see that as being a real issue.
Yeah, most of the residential zones, with the exception of the PC zone, are capped at 30 feet. So,
Could they get a 3-story townhome in 30 feet?
We have roof pitches?
Flat, and if you probably put the bottom in the ground.
Okay,
Yeah, depending on the ground, I guess.
It wouldn't work out.
Just thought I'd ask, okay?
No, good point. That's my father has a similar circumstance where he lives in a townhome where they excavated a little, but not so much the basement. That's where the garage is, and then you got 2 levels on top of that. I see what you mean.
What would be the pros and cons of taking that density lower? Because you kind of landed halfway with the 7.5, and as we're trying to keep these with an owner-occupied townhome, if we drive that lower or maybe increase the minimum home size, can we solidify that a little bit? And
well, when you start going lower than that, then you start getting into the single family range, where it's just not economically developed, or it just doesn't work economically. We've got, just so you know, we do have a couple of members of the development community who might go get their take on that density matter.
Well, the one you showed us up by Hobo's, you said was 5.5?
5, yeah, about 5.5.
That's like a pretty nice. I've driven by that one. It's a pretty nice development there, and I would imagine it's probably almost all owner occupied.
Some of that, it depends on how much open space there's in there as well. And the more open space, it drives the density down. So.
Any other questions for staff?
I'll have more. So the underlying zoning, does that require a certain percentage of landscaping, or would that just be based on the 7.5 units per acre, and we've got 2 acres, so you'd be 15 acres on the 2, and then the landscaping and parking lot would just be part of that?
So that would be a maximum under this code. So it would be that density would have to reflect the underlying district up to a maximum of this density.
Okay.
Anyone else? Well, looks like there might be a couple people that want to comment on this particular item. Please, public hearing is now open.
Probably getting tired of hearing from me. Do you need me to repeat my name again, Julie? Barrett Peterson, Peterson Development, 225 South, 200 East, Salt Lake City, Utah. I've given some thought to this, what the council and planning commission is trying to do out here, and I understand where it's coming from. You don't like maybe the way high density development is progressed at a rapid pace over the last few years. I guess my pitch would be I understand maybe it swung a little too far, the pendulum, where, as I understand it right now, there's no attached housing that can be done other than in a TOD or a TSOD, and those aren't happening anytime soon, at least on properties on the edge of the city where we're developing, for instance, out on 5600 West, and we're in regular talks with UTA and UDOT, and those are probably a ways off. So from a pragmatic standpoint, as a developer, we look at things like economic development. We helped get the Smiths in there at 5600 West, and Smiths is pretty candid with us and share their numbers, and they're probably a little lower than they'd like to be, and they're counting on rooftops and growth. And I don't think you can count on just 10,000 square foot lots. I think you need to have a diversity of housing types. You say maybe let's lower it from 7.5. I would counter and say, it should be higher than that. You have millennials that don't want a single family home. They don't want a yard in many cases. So I think you need to look at the changing trends. And obviously, I know it's your community, you need to do its best that way. But those are some of kind of the countering voices to what maybe you're saying and what the city council is saying is to look at the whole picture that way. I know it's not just from a developer what I want. I'm not going to say I'd do apartments up and down the city and just paint it that way, because we're a developer that's shown we do a mix of housing types. We do single family lots, we do townhomes, we do apartments, and a lot of times it just depends where the piece of property is located. So I think the senior, including senior housing, is key. We have a project down on 104th South and 3200 West in South Jordan that's just getting started, and those are 55 and older homes. They're attached. They're single family, or they're slab on grade. They're starting out at $350,000 and above. We'd love to bring a community like that to West Jordan. Currently, we can't because you don't allow that, and so I'm appreciative that you're moving in a direction to try to allow a few more attached housing types, because I think there's a need for it. The developers I've talked to have just kind of scratched their head when they heard about this. From Perry Homes, who I just met with in the hall, Homes has a piece on 78th South. They're just kind of in limbo. They don't know what to do. And I guess, again, I'll come back to economic development. We need those rooftops, those people that you may or may not want to live in townhomes. I don't know what the stigma is with townhomes sometimes if they're owner occupied. Townhomes can be very nice, and people like living in them. So this isn't going back to a rental scenario, which I know there's a stigma attached to that, but this is just townhomes and seniors. So I think the recommendation from staff is a very good one. We support it wholeheartedly. My last comment is, if we're trying to plan intelligently for the future, I know groups like Envision Utah would support something like this. They know that with the growth coming in the valley, you can't just have single-family homes. You need to have a mix, and can't speak for them, but I know that if you're trying to do smart planning and smart growth, with the water situation we have in our state, you've got to have a mix of housing types. So I'll get off my soapbox. Appreciate your time tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm not sure we can really do that during a public hearing.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not the applicant. I'm used to saying that. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to comment on this particular item?
My name is Curtis Levitt. I represent Homes, 126 West Sago Lily. It's nice to have an opportunity to come and to give some public comment in reference to the Pat Kaplan grade. I've had an opportunity for the past 2 years to work with, I'm going to read some of this so I don't miss anything I've made notes of. Had an opportunity to work exclusively with Ray McCandless, Greg Mikolash, Paul Coates, Bryce Hatterley, and previous director Tom Burdett for the past 2 years on our parcel at 7000 South and Ochre West there. We've made some great headway. We've had some great success, and we actually had our concept plan, met with all the different departments, and had it to the point where we were able to make an application for general plan amendment as well as a zone amendment change. And at that time, albeit the applications were processed, the cap and grade was actually implemented. So that kind of put a screeching halt to our development opportunities. With the development we have, it's 133 acres approximately. And within that development, it has a myriad of different product types, townhomes, different types of townhomes, single families, 5,000 square foot lots, 6,000, 7, 8, 10,000 square foot lots as well. There's also a component to it with some commercial to it also. in March, we had an opportunity for some of you to come through the tour, and I think I recognize some of you that were able to come to some of our townhomes. I'm hoping that you had an opportunity to see the quality of workmanship that we have, and also if done right, and if it's laid out right with the correct densities in a community like Daybreak, it can be a place where people come to reside. They don't necessarily have to have quarter-acre lots or half-acre lots, and as Mr. Peterson just mentioned, a lot of buyers currently are looking for smaller lots, and both from an affordability standpoint and also from a lifestyle perspective. So having said that, with a 7.5 unit acre development approved, that would preclude us from building a lot of our product type in this development. With having said that we could have to go back and replat it, and you'd essentially end up coming with 4,000 square foot lots. Homes, we've been in Daybreak for a number of years, and we've built a lot of homes on small postage stamps, so to speak, small lots, and they can be done right and nice. But that does put us back to where our unit count actually drops 100 home sites, so that makes our development not even pencil at that point in time. Furthermore, I've covered 8,000 and 10,000 square foot lots. In order to plat the community style of homes, we would recommend that you consider having a development or within your cap and grade allowing townhomes similar to what you approved on October 22nd that you adopted, not necessarily putting a specific density on, but actually allowing 2-car garage owner-occupied properties. And if you did put a density on there, somewhere in the ballpark from 12 to 14 units to the acre. And as Ray mentioned, a lot of that is taken consideration with our open space. As we look at our development we have thus far laid out, it's about 40% open space, so you can consider everything there. So is my time up?
If you want to finish your thought.
Let me just finish up by saying the most important thing to you as a city, and I know you have a great responsibility, and it's an awesome responsibility, and you definitely have the choice to make what you'd like to do. As Barrett mentioned, economic impact is taking place. When we take away quality developments that are done right, you're going to actually not have the rooftops there to justify for the commercial development that needs to come out to that section of the area. And there's countless people, well, let me retract saying that. A few people have contacted us asking about the commercial area out there and coming in there, but in talking to CBRE and other commercial brokers, there's not the rooftops that justify for the commercial growth to come out there. So until that happens and you have more rooftops, you're not going to see any commercial growth out there. And also with saying that, I appreciate your time and hope you can reconsider maybe upping the density of 12 to 14. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in our audience, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for some further discussion. Commissioner Scossi.
I think my opinion is that we as a commission aren't necessarily against multifamily homes. I don't feel that. I think what our major concern as a commission is more the quality of home. Because what our goal is for the city and the general plan is to encourage owner-occupied homes that people aren't going to move out of, and that folks aren't going to come in and try to buy up and then just turn into rental properties. And if it becomes a 12 to 14 per acre site, then I kind of get the feeling that it's just going to become, and I know we say owner-occupied homes, but as we discussed in our pre-meeting, that's ridiculously hard to enforce. And so we have very limited tools at our disposal to protect the subdivisions from becoming overrun with rentals. So I'm of the opinion that we still keep the density lower. I'm not opposed to townhomes. I'm not opposed to different styles of housing. I just want to see the quality reflected there that would allow people, people that are going to come in there are going to want to invest in that and stay there. That's my concern.
Agreed.
Commissioner Hyder?
My thoughts on quality have really nothing to do with the density. Just because you have a higher density doesn't mean it's going to be lower quality. So how we how we work that into the equation is going to be difficult. So personally, I think the 7.5 is too low. I think it should be somewhere around 10, myself personally, because it incentivizes a developer to come in and be able to have a project that will pencil out. Even if we require a little larger floor plan, that would alleviate your concerns as far as having the rental properties. The higher density and the smaller houses keeps the price point down to where someone could come in and buy them and rent them out. The higher density with a larger floor plan could preclude that. So those are my thoughts.
Mr. Quinn?
I agree with Commissioner Hyder. I think that we have a measure of control over the quality of the product that's going to be going. Am I mistaken there? So I think that I agree. I think having a higher units per acre makes sense. It is going to encourage the type of development I think that we're looking for on that edge of the city.
Commissioner Green?
My concern is as you look towards infill projects on the east side, plus all the hundreds of acres on the west side, we're going to become the largest city in the western United States if we go too high density. Obviously, there's a trade-off in water between single-family homes and a lot of people per acre using a lot of the water as well. So that has to balance. My other concern is that when we start talking about 10, 12, 14 units per acre, how do you get 14 units per acre on a 1,500 square foot home, and now you've got no open space, and that makes it very difficult. You look at the one in up by Immigration that you showed us at 5.5 units per acre. Yeah, there's open space, but there's a central space, but it's not that big for all those people around it. And so, then if we allow those kind of units without any open space, that taxes the rest of us, but we have to pay for the parks and all those other ancillary things that go into a higher density project. The other thing I think is when you look at a smaller, when you start talking about higher density, and they tend to drift smaller, and those are easier to buy, but they're also easier to say first home, see buy, and then we're back to what you were talking about, where we're renting them out, and we have no control over the rent, and we know what happens with rental properties over time. There's not the pride in ownership and all those other kinds of things that create the difficulty. So, I understand the developer standpoint that there's a bottom line cost that needs to break even. We need the commercial development in the city to support the additional parks, and so which comes first, chicken or the egg? But I'm not comfortable with going to 12 or 14. That's for sure, because I think that creates we know what certain landowners or some part residents of the area, they clamor over anything more than 3 per acre, and I don't think that's ever feasible anymore. But I think we have to balance the numbers, and I'm not sure that 12 to 14 would meet the intent of where we need to be, and I'm not sure that 10 does for me either. So,
Commissioner Scosson?
Just talking about the square footage again is I agree that it could be something to look at. But my concern with that is there are a lot of ways to build a big home very cheaply, and I just want to encourage the quality level, and I don't know. Really within our toolkit of trying to protect the homeowners and that, I just don't see that by allowing square footage to be larger and more homes is the answer. I kind of agree with Commissioner Green in the sense that if there's we provide big homes, but there's no open space or no ability for amenities around the area, I don't think people are going to want to stay there. I think they're going to want to buy it and as a starter home or look at it, they'll get into it as an investment, and because there's really not the amenity or open space or ability to, if you feel like you're crammed into an area, most people want to leave that area, in my opinion. And so I think the density as it's written at 7.5, it's kind of a compromise. I liked the look of the one up by the Hogle Zoo at 5.5. I realized that we'd be squeezing a little bit more into an area to do it at 7.5, but I certainly don't want to see it any higher than that.
So can we address that, instead of looking at the units per acre, what if we increase the minimum home size to 1750? How much does that impact the other goals we're trying to accomplish?
So if we,
and I'm just throwing out random numbers.
Yeah. So if we increased it to 1750 but left the density along at 7.5,
does that push us more into that more owner-occupied type home versus a rental, and still keep the open space available? And
yeah, I think it could help.
And I don't live in this type of a product, so I'm not sure what 1,500 versus 1,750 gets me in.
It's not massive, but price per square foot of a home is going to increase the cost of the home a little bit, and I think there's a price margin where you kind of pass the rental. People that are interested in renters are not going to purchase it at that point because it significantly lowers their market of people that will rent in that range, and then on top of that, even if people did rent within that range, it would have to be certain, they fall within a demographic that's going to either stay there or care for the home more.
Why? Because they make more money? Because the rents are going to be higher? Is that what your thought is?
Typically, yeah, because, and I'm not saying that people that make less money don't care for their product. I'm just stating that in demographic areas that are, lower affluent, there tends to be more rental properties where people don't care for the homes.
With a higher price point, it makes it more difficult to rent.
Correct.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that I don't want to make it impossible, but at the same time, I also want to provide an area that isn't going to be subject to tons of rentals.
Well, that's why staff came up with the 1,500 square foot mark, and that could be raised or lowered, I suppose.
Right. But staff also did say that they just kind of put a number in there that felt like compromise.
Ray, that property over that's south of Smith's on Redwood, what's the average square footage?
That I don't remember.
Those are 2,200 if I remember.
It was on the slide. The square footage of each unit was on the slide. Maybe you could bring that slide up. Most of them, there were a few that were 1,200.
Because that one came in, you said almost 10 units per acre.
1673, 1504, 1562. The type Ds are down in the 1,300, but most of these are 1,500 to 1,600 square feet.
And the price points are higher in there, which again make it more difficult for it to pencil out for a rental.
Mm-hmm. And we walked through these, and I was comfortable with the quality of them. I felt like it's going to attract the right.
It was a nice project, and the philosophy of the builder and developer in there was to keep it that way, and he was prideful in what he did, and stayed on as maintenance too. So anyway,
I miss this field trip. I'm looking at this, the biggest portion of this whole entire project was open space. Was it sufficient? Did you feel like it was comfortable in there?
Well, I don't know that it was built out enough yet to really get a feel for the open space. We kind of got an overview of where open space would be. I think there's going to be like a basketball court or something in the center, some kind of a courtyard there. And
This felt a little tight for me.
Well, I mean, so that's what I'm saying, but this is coming in at an average of 9.9 units, which is closer to what, the higher end of some of us were saying.
Right.
That feels to me like a more appropriate level.
I think this felt tight. And if you look where it says phase 2 on the map there, that's all driveways. I mean, the whole thing is driveways, and
that was just a little courtyard there, cement.
Correct.
Benches. There's not like a clubhouse or anything.
So there's not really a lot of.
That's my concern with the development when you look at this. I mean, I've driven through Somerset Village. I live over that way. They look nice. It's a nice development. But when you look at the amenities or when you look at the open space, there's not much here.
Right.
And so then you look at, all right, so then what open space needs to be provided here? And we look at the rest of, let's say, an area like that's in this area, and there are very few. The nearest park to this is a couple of neighborhood parks over across 70th, or down here at Veterans Park. Mm-hmm. This makes this very. I agree with you. This makes this very tight,
right? Without
any space to even have a couple of picnic tables, really.
Right.
And when you have a family gathering and some of those kind of things here. It makes it tight with parking. It makes it tight with everything else, and I think it does make it. Like I said, it's a nice project. And I guess my other question would be on this one is that we don't have this in here, and most of these new developments typically have an HOA that's responsible for some of the external maintenance. I think I'm wondering if we could add something to that particular paragraph about HOA and maintaining upkeep or something like that prevents, what you were talking about with the rental taking a dive. Mm-hmm. But I just think that, when you look at this development here as an example, 9.9 with no open space is pretty, it's pretty tight.
Lifestyles are changing a little bit too. These guys study that a little bit more, but like you said, with the millennial buyers out there, they aren't looking for open space necessarily. If they want it, they get on their bicycle or they get in a car and drive and go hiking or whatever. But they're not interested in yard work and really any responsibility as far as upkeep on the house other than on the inside. So this product offers a lot for that particular buyer.
I agree with you in that, but I think that, these are just so crammed in here. And realistically, if we go down to 7.63 or per acre, if we go down to that, you really, if you look at this row, there's the first row on the left in the center, there's 9 units there. You'd only be taking 1 and some change of that unit out. So you're still allowing a lot of homes per acre at 7.63, but you're just tweaking it a little bit for some breathing room. Right here, to me, it looks like there's the front of the house, the porch, and then the walkway. And that's it. And I agree that a lot of people don't want yards and stuff anymore, but my own parents live in a subdivision they live in Daybreak in townhomes, but they've allowed for a small little amenity area, yard area that my mom loves to garden in. I get that we're trying. This is a lifestyle choice, and I totally agree with that. But I really think that there has to be a little bit more space than what's allowed for here.
Yeah, in this development, if you dropped, since it's 9 acres and 9 units per acre, and if we went to 7.5, you drop 2 units per acre. So in this development, it's 6.5 acres, so you drop 13 units, which really would be, that would really have been phase one. This would be about that north row, right?
Right.
1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it would have been phase one. And you would have that much open space for, you know, for community gardens and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 13 units in that is too much, and maybe you need an open space of, you know, half of that. So, you know, I'd be willing to look at 8.25, something in there but I agree with you. This is too tight, and we need to have something that allows some people to do something.
I just feel that the higher units per acre is going to allow us to have more packs. We're going to have some that come in and pack in like this, but not everybody's going to come in and pack in at 10 per unit, 10 per acre. I think doing this, keeping it at 7.5, we're telling them this is the only way we're going to allow you to come here, and we restrict the ability for some developers to come in. I like the idea that he's talking about coming in with some of this mixed use, having some commercial surrounding this area, which we need. I mean, we're going to get them. You know, Commissioner Green talked about the chicken and the egg. I think they got to come together. They can't come independently. They're not. Neither. I don't think either can survive. I think 12 is too high. I think 10 is a good number. I feel like this is a good fit. We're going to get some that will allow phase one to be gone and put some gardens, but there are going to be some developments that they don't need that. They just don't care.
Possibly design changes could increase the green space too. I don't know. I don't know how that would work too. But.
Well, lots of discussion. We seem to have a pretty big variation on opinions on the size of the property and size of the dwelling units per acre there.
Can I ask one more question of the staff? Maybe you can give me a better answer on this one. I know there's been a lot of fights over PUDs, PUC, all the planned unit development stuff. How was Somerset Village? Was it set up as a planned community, or was it just set up based on its zoning, that it was zoned R112 or whatever the heck it was?
I don't remember exactly how that was done. Do you remember, Julie? It's okay, it was a PRD then.
Okay. Would we require, I guess the question is that under this type of design, if it were something similar to an R112 that allows 12 units per acre, which is a little higher than what we're talking about, but if somebody came in and did that, they wouldn't have to necessarily do a lot of planning if they just come in and do a preliminary site plan subdivision, here we go, and you're kind of stuck with the design, where at a PRD, you've got more, a PRD or some planned community, you've got a little bit more flexibility over the design, right?
That's correct.
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't deviate, and also at some point, if we adopt something like this, we may need to look at, can we require a PRD or something to that nature, so that we maybe have some control over the design of the development, like we've seen in other developments. If the development met the criteria for the land that's already zoned, they throw it up and they do whatever they want, really. But if we had a criteria that said, hey, no, when you apply this part of the zoning or this part of the plan, it also has to meet the requirements of a PRD or something, that maybe, I don't know, I'm just talking out loud.
Regardless of the development, they all go through an extensive review process in terms of getting the best design before it actually comes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission gets a crack at it. If it's a multifamily use, the Design Review Committee. So there's a lot of it takes a look at those elevation drawings and the site layout. So there are a lot of levels of review before it actually gets approved. So I mean, even if it is a standard, a single-family residential neighborhood, it still goes through a lot of a lot of all the planned developments. Those things just allow for a little bit of design flexibility.
I mean, I guess my perspective is that, because I lived through this one, I lived through the Gardner Village stuff. where the first thing went through a whole bunch of staffing, and we got really, for lack of a better term, a marginal product. And then after months of fighting back and forth and working, we actually got a good product. I'd rather skip the first part of that kind of a project again and get something better. So that's why I'm wondering how we can do this process better, that if we have a development like this, we could, have some of those kind of things in place. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, if I may, aren't we working on improved design manual? So projects would have to comply with the design manual.
Commissioner Pack?
Oh, thank you. Great conversation. I just wanted to try to take it in. I personally own 4 rentals in West Jordan, so I understand the pros and cons, developer issue, renter issue, neighborhood issue. And so I think I'd be more in favor of somewhere around 8. This has been described, 9.9 too high, maybe 7.5 too low. I suppose we can make a motion approving. Can't we make a motion forwarding a positive recommendation with the adjustment with the adjustment of changing 7.5 to 8?
Absolutely.
Why don't I make a motion?
Please.
Thank you. Based on the findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission for a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed text amendments to Title 13 as addressed in this report, with the one change of changing the density of 7.5 dwelling units per acre to 8.0 per acre.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pack, second by Commissioner Skoski. Any discussion to that motion? Commissioner Skoski.
Just one point before we vote. When we walk through this subdivision, they have a stipulation written into their CC&Rs that you're not allowed to park in your own driveway for the specific reason that your car doesn't fit in your driveway. And if we go up 10 to 12 units, we're going to end up with that same problem.
Any other comments, discussion, concerns?
I don't know how that can be a blanket statement. That would be a design issue, wouldn't it?
Right, but once you start packing things in as tight as this, the only way that you're going to be able to alleviate that is to go straight up. And these units weren't extravagantly large on the lower end anyway. They were beautiful units, but they were modest units. And I think if you start packing houses in like that, it doesn't really matter the acreage. You're going to have to, unless you're going to have 500 square foot floors and go straight up, you're going to run into that same problem.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at that development down there off of 13th West, just before you get that you can cut through to go to Home Depot.
Right.
What is it, Stonehenge Way? You look at how many people don't use their garages because they turn their garage because they can't park their cars in their garage.
Right.
Because of the footprint of the house and some of those other kinds of things. They all park in the driveway, and it's one car. The 2-car garages is a must. But even then, with the 2-car garage, you can't. The way they designed those, they can't put 2 cars in that development. So I'm actually wondering out loud if we can't make at least a minimum requirement on this one that the attached door. I'm going to make a motion to amend the original motion and say that the attached 2-car garage also needs to be 625 square feet. That would be a motion to amend to say that the attached 2-car garage has to be a minimum of 625 square feet.
What's the standard double garage?
That one was right off the top of my head. It says 25 by 25. Is it 400?
It's 400.
Yeah.
Do you want to amend that?
We'll say 400 square feet.
Okay.
I'm not an expert on dimensions of garages, but I concur with the sentiment that the garage needs to be high enough, wide enough to get 2 cars in, long enough to get 2 cars in. Even in my neighborhood of 3rd acre homes, people can't park their SUVs in them because the homes were built 20,
Yeah,
25
you
years
can't
ago
park it.
before the SUVs.
I mean, if you don't have a, I mean, even a 20 by 20 garage, which is 400 square feet, is going to be hard to have to put a Dodge Durango and a car in it. So it's got to be at least 400. So I'm going to say, I'm going to make the motion 450 square feet. And we'll see where that goes.
Are you okay with that amendment to your motion?
And staff is saying that the usual size is 400. That's the minimum size in West Jordan, or I just don't know what 400 versus 450 is. What's going to fit?
Yeah, I've seen them 18 by 20 or 20 by 20.
So 20 by 20 would fit a nice large SUV, a pickup truck.
Not a pickup. No, 22 feet for pickup. 400, I think, works.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, you're
So I said 450 so that you could fit a truck in it. That's why I said 450. I think the 450 you could get a truck in it.
I'm fine with that.
You accept that?
Thank you.
Okay with that? Okay, we have an amended motion now. So we've added two stipulations to that to change the dwelling unit per acre to 8 and to establish a minimum garage of 450 square feet. Any further discussion to the motion? Well, okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries, okay, count, 4-2, with Commissioner Heiner and Commissioner Clooney voting against the motion. That concludes our agenda for the evening, unless somebody else has something they would like to discuss. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Anybody opposed to that? We stand adjourned until June 2nd, 2015.
Thanks for running a great program.